Welcome to the Long Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet. It's been a crazy few weeks, so I'm going to try and find a way of summarizing the few weeks. The thing that I keep dwelling on in my mind relates back to getting back in contact with Douglas Rushkoff, who is someone who I haven't contacted since about 2015, I don't know, 2011, that makes more sense. Anyway, I recorded a podcast with him, I think, in 2011, and I'm not sure if we'd had dinner before that or after that, I don't know. I don't have a very good memory of when, I spoke with Douglas Rushkoff last, but I did get back in contact with him because I was looking at the video that I put online for some folk associated with the Timothy Leary archive, and obviously walking through it with Bruce Damer. I'd used that video to really remind myself of how I was once friends with Bruce Damer a long time ago. Anyway, so I thought, well, this is probably something I should show Doug Rushkoff, and also included my 2 chapters in the John Draper book, Beyond the Little Blue Box is what it's called, which my friend Craig Wilson and I basically edited it, the technical parts of it. He wrote a majority of it, but there are 2 large sections. Well, not large sections. There are 2 multi-page sections of my writing in Secrets of the Little Blue Box. Now, Secrets of the Little Blue Box is a bit of an enigma because my recollection, at least last time I looked for it on ABE Books, was that it sold for a small fortune. If you buy it on eBay, which seems to be the current way to get it, you don't pay a small fortune, but there's actually a finite number of the books. They didn't go with one of the print-on-demand services. They went with the finite printing service and then charged accordingly. So anyway, I now have about 15 copies. No, I don't. I probably have about 9 copies now, because I was talking with a co-worker about just the craziness of my life, and actually really more associated with my time in 99 through to 2001, which we'll just leave on the table as that. Anyway, so I got in contact with Douglas Rushkoff, and Douglas Rushkoff actually apologized for introducing me to John Draper, which he hadn't actually introduced me to John Draper. He'd just written about him positively in his book Siberia, which I corrected him about. And that just opened a kind of floodgates of emotions, because when he apologized to me about the crunch situation, and I've done a what's it called? Trigger warning podcast recently about John Draper crunch. So that just brought about a huge kind of welling of emotions and sadness associated with my experiences, my early experiences. We're talking 1995 when the John Draper crunch thing occurred, but really a series of my experiences that I don't need to rate in this particular podcast. So anyway, that kind of created a downfall in me. I've also been relatively heavily medicated since I hit my head, which was the 4 weeks podcast in the feed. It's quite ironic that these podcasts actually represent more of my reality than most of the things that I talk about in my general day-to-day. Anyway, so this created a kind of avalanche of emotions and just general sadness, which I had very limited control over. And that was somewhere early May 11th, I think, it was when, it really hit me. And the whole thing was just horrible, because it was just a swelling or welling of emotions, more importantly, that I just had no control over. Just really great sadness about large aspects of my life, which normally I don't even think about. So that's been the past 4 weeks, has been just dealing with that. And now, thankfully, I'm going back to work and returning to some degree of normalcy, but just a lot of really bleak sadness and depression. And just having Doug Rushkoff actually apologize for the John Draper crunch thing. Like, no one's ever apologized about an aspect of my life quite like that. Certainly my parents have never apologized about very similar incidents. And I don't know whether he took responsibility for it, because he realized very quickly afterwards that obviously it had caused me some degree of extreme distress, which you probably should anticipate if someone allows themselves to get in some bizarro energy blockage removal thing when they're 18. It probably indicates that prior to then, things hadn't been too terrific for them. There was a lot of decompressing associated with that time, probably none of which I needed to actually do as an adult in my late 40s. But anyway, so lots of sadness and lots of emotion that came back through that. And I'm just recovering through it. So I'm going to record My Rules Are Better, and then I'm going to call this a podcast. Tom Barbalet in Las Vegas, Nevada, signing out.